with only a few weeks to the elections, presidential candidates are crisscrossing the country to campaign for votes. But of the 18 candidates in the field, only a handful are visible. So the question is, where are the other presidential candidates? Well, Georgina Ndukwe Ezanyika has the answer.
When the 2023 elections come to mind, who are the candidates you think of? Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, and perhaps Rabiu Kwankwaso, isn't it? It might interest you to know that some Nigerians may not be able to mention the other parties in the race, let alone their presidential candidates. Some have tried to remain in the limelight, like Omoyele Sowore of African Action Congress and Adebayo Adewale of the Social Democratic Party. But where are the other presidential candidates?
Analysts are asking what has happened to the campaigns of Accord parties Imomulen Christopher, Nnadi Osita of Action People's Party, Adenuga Oluwafemi of Boot Party, Osakwe Johnson of the National Rescue Movement, and Ado Ibrahim Malik of the Young People's Party. And what about the only female candidate among the 18 presidential candidates? If you do not know, Ojei Princess Chichi is the presidential candidate for the Allied People's Movement. Kolawole Abiola, the eldest son of the acclaimed winner of the annulled 1993 presidential election, late MKO Abiola, is hoping to repeat the feat of his father with the People's Redemption Party. Late Sani Abacha's chief security officer, retired Major Al-Mustafa Hamza of the Action Alliance, is also in the race for the top job. We also have the flag bearer of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Professor Chukwudi Umeadi, the candidate of the Zenith Labour Party, Dan Iwanyanwu, that of Action Democratic Party, Sani Yabagi, and not forgetting the presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Kachuku Dumebi. The question is, how will Nigerians vote for a candidate they have little or no knowledge of? Political analysts say, from all indications, it might be safe to say most of the 2023 presidential candidates are just on the ballot to add former presidential candidate to their titles. And many say they are unnecessarily crowding the ballot paper. Georgina Ndukwe Ezanyika, Arise News.
Thank you so much. Well, joining us now are Emmanuel Njoku, who is the Director of Democracy and Governance at the non-governmental organization Connected Development, as well as the Rise Director of News and Politics Editor Sambo. Thank you both for being on the news tonight. I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Njoku. I mean, when you listen to the INEC chairman, reassuring that the elections will go on as planned, as scheduled, coming on the backdrop of that report by an INEC official as well, who says the election may be postponed and results may be cancelled if we don't fix the security situation. Are you reassured?
Yes, the security situation in the country is bad and it's sad, looking at the time and how we are close to the elections. But I'm not particularly surprised with the pockets of challenges of insecurity across the country. A lot of people, as you are aware, would not want these elections to hold, especially given the introduction of the new Electoral Act, the introduction of the beavers, the introduction of the election result transmission, transmission of results electronically. A lot of people would not want this election to hold. But however, before now, I've been hearing people saying the election will not hold because of insecurity. And I never believed, and I was surprised people were saying that, because in my mind, and looking at the Electoral Act, Section 24, subsection 2, there's a provision for situations where there is insecurity in the country. And the Section 24, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act has already stipulated that in situations where election date has been fixed, and then there are pockets of insecurity in some parts of the country, that election will still go on. But if for any reason INEC feels that in some parts of the country or in some constituencies or some polling units, because of insecurity, elections will not hold, INEC shall postpone the election and go ahead with the election in every other part of the country. However, I think Section 3 or Section 4 now goes forth to say, at the end of the election, that there will not be a return of a winner of the election. But however, if the total number of registered voters in the places where insecurity affects the difference between the person leading in the election, that if the number of the registered voters there is smaller than the difference of the person leading in the election, that INEC will, however, go ahead and declare the results. So I am very happy. I am very glad that the INEC chairman today has reassured Nigerians, coming from the assurances he has gotten from the security agencies, that the election will go on. This is sad news for the people who do not want election to happen in this country, but I trust that the election will hold.
Sambo, well, we've heard Emmanuel actually repeat that statement. There are some people who may not want these elections to hold. But listening to Mahmoud Yakub, the INEC chairman there, quoting him, Commission is not even contemplating any adjustment to the election timetable, let alone the postponement of the general election. Same question. How confident are you? Because INEC says Nigerians are ready, but is INEC ready to deliver free, fair and credible elections?
Thank you so much, Ngozi. INEC has no choice than to be ready, because every resources that's necessary for INEC to be prepared for this election, has just been given to it. Not quite long, we had asked INEC if it was facing issues, financial challenges, and they said funding has been made available. They haven't told us that the federal government hasn't released all the monies that have been asked by them. And then if you look at it, you discover that some politicians are trying to stoke some sort of fire ahead of the election, and this will not be allowed to hold, because the Electoral Act had already foreseen some of these circumstances. And our guest in the studio there has already said everything clearly. The Electoral Act was very, very clear. There is no how that pockets of violence will stop INEC from conducting election, because by the electoral law we have in the country, the electoral body is compelled to go ahead with elections, because elections have been holding in countries that are in war, Syria, Afghanistan. You go to other places where it looks like they have more crisis in their countries more than Nigeria, and elections have been holding. So if elections have been holding in areas where there are pockets of violence, and if the intention of those who are burning some of the INEC offices is to stoke fear within the Electoral Commission so that the election will not hold, that I can tell you that they are just missing it, because the election must go on statutorily. And then secondly, if you look at the problems that we have with some of the political parties, they have not been preparing on time. They just left the preparation for the election till January because of what we usually call the fire brigade approach, and because some of them don't have enough funds. And so this is the time when some of them are beginning to kick off, and then you see that some of the presidential candidates, especially from the fringe parties, have just been lying low. Well, if they think that because they are just starting their campaigns now, they can force the nation to want to shift the elections because they didn't start their campaigns on time, it will be surprising to them that Nigerians will not allow this. But are there issues of insecurity that need to be addressed? Yes. Was that official actually speaking on behalf of INEC and some fears within the commission? Yes. It's good to know that Professor Mahmoud Yakubu is reassuring the nation, but what needs to be done is that the National Security Advisor needs to send the warning signals to those who are burning INEC offices that, look, apart from just mentioning that they will be prosecuted, the nation will not be held to a standstill. The elections must go ahead, and no one can bring the nation down.
Indeed, well said. You talked about fringe parties in your submission, and I want to bring Njoku back into this conversation. As a public educator when it comes to democratic rights, Arise News is beaming its searchlight on those other political parties apart from the front runners. In that report put together by Georgina Njoku, our correspondent, Mr. Njoku, do you think it's time we have parties segmented in Nigeria in a case where, these fringe parties can focus on their strengths in the maybe state and local government elections, and we have the front runners participate in the national elections? Do you think it's about time?
Legally, every citizen of Nigeria has the right to run for the office of the president, and as well, legally, citizens of this country have the right of association to form political parties and choose and decide which offices they want to run. But sometimes I wonder, what are they running for? Where are they running to? Because people run for different reasons. Some people run for clout chasing, because to run for presidential election is not cheap. You have to go around, you have to talk to the people. So when you see some of these people, there are some political parties you see, and you wonder, like you said. But then every time a meeting is called, you see the party chairman are always available in meetings. Then you wonder, where are the presidential candidates? And what do they really want out of this election? But let me say this, because I'm an election observer, I'm a field person. you may not begin to wonder, how is it that sometimes during election, if you go to a particular polling unit in election, you see party agents, you see like, let's say 10 or 12 different political party agents in the polling unit, but you now realize that, or find out close to the end of the election, that out of the 10 political party agents, that 7 or 8 of the political party agents there are working for one political party. So this goes to say that, some of the people that run for office, from what we found out, in the field, some of these things, they run for business, some of them run for clout, some of them just run for, just for the show, or some of them run for the name, for the title, former presidential candidate. And it doesn't make sense. But however, you cannot stop them. What INEC did in the last election, when we had how many political parties? Over 90 political parties. At the end of the election, just like the law says, if you are not able to win a seat, a state assembly seat, or any seat across Nigeria, you'll be deregistered. So at the end of this election, we're also trusting that INEC will delist a lot of these political parties, and then maybe 2023 they come back again. Right.
Sambo, you have the last weigh-in on this. In the Second Republic, Nigeria had about 5 political parties. Correct me if I'm wrong. And some argue that Nigeria organically is a 2-party state. Are these 18 political parties unwieldy?
Ngozi, Nigeria is not organically a 2-party sort of state. I would say that based on our experiences, at the best of times, we've always had a situation whereby democratic growth encourages like about 4 to 5 political parties. The regime of former military head of state Ibrahim Babangida had wanted that 2-party solution for Nigeria, but it didn't really turn out well. At the best of times, what looks like can work very well for us, it's a 5-party state. And Abacha tried that during his own period before we got into the Fourth Republic here. And so the process of having a multi-party democracy is good for the country, but it's just that people keep abusing it. But I think that if we're able to harmonize our thoughts together and give room for between the registration of 5 to 8 political parties, eventually will dissolve into 5 parties. But taking people into 2 political parties, I can tell you, Ngozi, because of the way we run institutions in the country, it may be quite difficult. And look at some of the presidential candidates. Actually, if you look at them, you see that they are not approaching Nigerians to seek votes. Instead, some of them are actually looking for alignment. In 2019, we saw a group of political parties that went to the presidential villa to sort of seek an alignment with then candidate Muhammadu Buhari, saying that they are willing to endorse him for the presidency, and then wanting to take from the largest of the governing party. So if you are wanting to step down, then why did you waste the time of Nigerians to allow for the registration of your party, to allow INEC to register you and put you on the ballot? Isn't it making the ballot paper too long? Isn't it confusing a lot of Nigerians on election day? We need to be very serious about this, and the best way to promote our multi-party democracy is actually to reduce it further. And I think in the long run, if we are able to go back to what happened in the Second Republic, have some very good 5 political parties that are able to bring the aspirations of our candidates from different parts of the geopolitical zones of the country, or even 6, if you may want to make it look like one party per geopolitical zone, it will help us as a nation.
All right, thank you very much. Somna Sambo Arise, Director of News, and of course, Emmanuel Njoku. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsline.